you so much, Nathaniel, and good afternoon and welcome to everyone who's joined today. We are already at close to 300 participants, which is just an amazing turnout. And as Nathaniel said, today is OCFS's third observance of Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I've been honored to be able to participate in all three of them. And we're here because violence against transgender individuals continues to be an unfortunate public health problem that we must continue to shine a spotlight on and combat as we are individuals and as we are workers and colleagues in our state agencies. We also know transgender individuals are 4 times as likely to be victimized than their cisgender counterparts, and this violence, as we know, and we've observed in past presentations, is always disproportionately targeted at transgender women of color. So you'll hear today from our amazing speakers, and Owen, who has capably served as our sort of spiritual guide in the past as we, in a solemn way, undertake today's presentation and continue our work on education, which is our best strategy against violence and preventing violence. We also know in our work here at OCFS, right, our runaway and homeless youth are also deeply impacted because they come from non-affirming families and lack allies in their lives. And so we too, as part of our collective goal, and here at OCFS, and I know it's true of our colleagues at civil service, are working hard, right? Working hard to make sure that we are doing our part, all of us, to make sure that we are providing affirming work environments so that every employee feels safe and feels like they can be who they are. And that we can celebrate them in our workplace. And then finally today, we will take some time to honor the names of those individuals who've fallen victim to the horrific violence. And we promise to fight together for a safer future for our transgender community. So I'm pleased to be here. And I'm so glad that we have hundreds and hundreds of staff and those who are interested in learning more with us here today. Always happy to co-sponsor this, and very happy and thankful to Owen Gilbo, who has been a partner with us at OCFS in this work. And Owen, thank you for once again being our partner and agreeing to serve as MC for this event. So I'll turn it over to you, Owen.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Poole. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us today. Today, we recognize Transgender Day of Remembrance, also known as TDOR. It's also known as the International Transgender Day of Remembrance as well. It's been observed annually from its inception on November 20th as a day to remember those who have been murdered as a result of ignorance and transphobia. It is a day set aside to call attention to the violence, extreme discrimination, and alienation towards those in society who are transgender. It's customary for TDOR to be observed on the days between the weekend before and the weekend after November 20th. Today, we celebrate, or honor, rather. It's not really a celebration. We commemorate. Transgender Day of Remembrance was founded in 1999 by Gwendolyn Ann Smith, a transgender woman, to memorize the murder of transgender woman Rita Hester in Allston, Massachusetts. It has slowly evolved from the web-based project started by Smith into an international day of action. The day has evolved and grown such that today it's marked internationally in more than 200 cities in 26 countries. Sadly, this year is on record for being the deadliest year so far, with at least 46 trans people murdered. I say at least, because often these stories go unreported or misreported. And by misreported, I mean authorities and media misgender a person, or they use the person's birth name or dead name and not the name that the person uses. So to misgender someone, if the person is a trans woman and the media or authorities will say that there's been a death of a male person, if the person uses the name Sasha and they report Sasha's death as being the death of Robert, that is what it means. If that was Sasha's birth name, that is what it means to misgender someone or to use their dead name. And so therefore, oftentimes the reports do not align. So as far as we know, 46 trans people have been murdered this year, and we're only at November 16th. So last year we thought we had hit the all-time high at 44, and the violence and murders killings continue to occur. The Human Rights Campaign began tracking violent deaths of TGNC people in 2013. Since 2013, there have been 202 violent deaths recorded. At least 85% of the victims were TGNC people of color. The alarming statistic is the disproportionate impact on Black trans women, who account for 66% of all trans murder cases. In 2001, again, the data, Nate, if you could go to the next slide, please. 2001 alone. Now, these statistics are behind our current number of 46. 34 out of the 37 at the time of this reporting, or 92% of anti-trans murder victims this year have been trans women of color. 76% of those were Black trans women, and 65% of victims are under the age of 30. Now, between 2010 and 2014, 1 in 19,000 people in the United States was murdered. For young Black trans women, that rate was 1 in 2006, a stark reality. So how do we stop the hate and violence? Do we need to enact more laws? Yes, there's still work to be done, but laws do not stop the hate. What does? Education. We believe that gender identity education is violence prevention. To that point, we'd like to offer a brief educational moment here. For some of you, this may be a refresher, and for others, this may be brand new. So let's take time to go over a few terms and definitions, and I've mentioned a few already. Transgender is often used as an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and/or expression is different from cultural expectations based on sex classification. This would include those who are transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, gender fluid, gender nonconforming, agender, and many others. You may hear the acronym TGNC, which I used already, or TGNCNB, which is used to refer to people who fall under the trans and gender nonconforming umbrella that we use. And that stands, so TGNC, transgender, gender nonconforming, and if we add NB at the end of it, it stands for non-binary. So a couple more terms to explain, a couple more terms to define. So sex assigned at birth. Oftentimes we'll hear this, sex assigned at birth. And sex assigned at birth, also known as SAB, refers to the sex we are assigned based on reproductive anatomy. So we're born, the doctor holds us up and declares to the world, it's a boy or it's a girl. And sometimes in the case of intersex babies, it may not be completely clear based on external genitalia. So we can talk, that really is a whole different topic to discuss at a later time. So gender identity forms in our brain usually between 2 to 4 years old, and that's independent. It's not the same thing as sex assigned at birth. It can be, but they're not necessarily equivalent. All right, they can align, but they are not the same thing. So sex assigned at birth and gender identity aren't the same, but they can align. So cisgender, all right, that's when your sex assigned at birth and gender identity align. So what does that mean? If in my case, I'm a transgender man, but if I were a cisgender man and the doctor had declared it's a boy and I identify as male, right? That's how I see myself, how I find myself moving throughout the world. I would be cisgender. Likewise, if the doctor announced it's a girl and you identify as female, then you are cisgender. The Latin prefix cis, the Latin for the prefix cis means on the same side of. So you are on the same side of, you align with the sex you were assigned with at birth. Now, transgender is gender identity that forms in a way different than, and does not align with your sex assigned at birth. So in my case, the doctor held me up, declared to the world I was female. However, I identify as male. The prefix trans, the Latin meaning for the prefix trans is across from. So my gender identity is across from that sex which I was assigned at birth. So hopefully that clears up a little bit. There are lots more terms and definitions. We all have access in SLIMS to the gender identity toolkit. We have all looked at it, and again, it's a really good reference to check back on. So ensuring safety and respect. This is really important. And what we're talking about today, we're referencing the workplace, but this really, it goes beyond the workplace, right? If we practice these things within our families, our communities, the state, our nation and world, then our environment, the totality of our environments are safe and respectful places for all people to be. Now, the easiest way to ensure safety and respect in the workplace, per se, and also outside, is using a person's correct name and pronouns. To intentionally use the wrong pronoun about someone can trigger trauma for them, and it's called misgendering. Okay. Intentionally using the wrong name for someone can also trigger trauma, and it's called dead naming. So both of those things are very important. And imagine, if you will, if you're a cisgender person, imagine, if you will, if someone continuously uses the wrong pronouns. So imagine if you identify as cisgender female and someone continues to use the pronouns he, him. Yeah, that's him over there. That's, are you talking, what's he doing? Any of those things. If you're cisgender female, you're going to find it offensive, right? Offending and hurtful. The same with dead naming someone. The same with using someone's improper name, right? If someone intentionally, if you've told somebody, 5 times over and they only work in the cubicle next to you, and you've told them what your name is. If I tell you my name is Owen and you continue to call me Angela or Angie, there's a problem with that, right? You're being disrespectful, offensive, and you can be triggering some real trauma for individuals who identify as TGNC, So one of the best things to do is introduce yourself with pronouns. Hi, I'm Gavin. My pronouns are he, him. I should have started the whole event that way. Hi, I'm Owen. My pronouns are he, him. You can add your pronouns to your email signature. It doesn't indicate, some people worry, well, I don't want people to think that I'm transgender, so I don't want to put my pronouns in there. The news flash is we all have gender identity. We all identify one way or another. Telling people what your pronouns are makes it easier for everyone to be respectful. So those are a couple of ways to ensure safety and respect. So why stay in the closet? And what does it mean to be in the closet? To be in the closet means that that people don't know, that you haven't let people know that you're transgender, gender fluid, gender queer, or haven't let people know what your gender identity is. And why? Why not just let everyone know who you are, right? We tell children all the time, just, embrace the world, tell them who you are. But why is it not safe for some children or teens or young adults or older adults? Why stay in the closet? Now, all transgender people choose to come out and transition in their own timeline. And sadly, there are many who never come out, and they pass on with never being able to fully embrace their authentic selves, never able to authentically live in the world. But no matter who the person is, they're when they come out and how they transition is on their own timeline. And it's false to think that everyone transitions in a particular way. All right. There's not like there's a set, it's not like a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you get to 5, you've transitioned. That's not the way it works. There's just various ways that individuals transition in life. Many transgender people are navigating their identity in public, seeking safety first. So I'll give you an example from my life. I used to live in upstate New York, rural upstate New York, further north than Albany, about 2 hours north. And I'm sitting in the barber shop. I just want a haircut. And these two guys start talking about those transgender people wanting to use bathrooms, right? And why do they want to use the bathroom? And, they're talking about men in dresses and, they want safety and respect, but they're not. And this conversation, you know how it goes, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm feeling really uncomfortable and I really need a haircut bad. So I'm trying to, and the barber, she's just kind of, playing it down the middle. And one of the guys says, well, we don't even have any of those transgenders around here anyways. At which point I have to make a decision, right? Because the educator in me wants to say, really? Well, you do. And I want to be able to educate the person, but I also want to be safe. And I don't want to walk outside the barber shop and be attacked physically or emotionally or verbally or whatever. I need to worry about my safety. Luckily, the other guy in the barbershop said, what are you talking about? There are transgender people in our community. And well, let's say the least, I got my haircut and I got out safely. But that's a reality when to be out publicly. The interesting thing is that, or the thing is, I was out publicly for the most part, but I don't go around announcing it for everyone because of fear that somebody out there might not be kind and might be violent against me. So someone may be in the closet because they're not ready to come out. They may be trying to figure out their gender identity and how they fit in the world. They may not come out because of fear or rejection of or harassment in the workplace. Some people are out, to their families, to their close friends, but not out in the workplace. And some may not be ready. They may not be out at home or to other close family members because of fear of rejection and such. And so they're not ready to come out at all. And to think that being out in the workplace, well, that only impacts the workplace. The truth is, it impacts our entire life. And we know with social media, you only need one thing to be said to another person, and everybody knows. So staying in the closet sometimes is a reality for some. Next. So privilege and confidential. If someone comes out to you as transgender at work or anywhere, if a friend of you comes out, if you're in church, I had a church friend come out to me. If someone tells you and comes out to you as transgender at work, let them know you support them. Ask if others know or if this should be kept private, because that's very important. Remember, it's up to the individual to decide who and when they will tell people. Ask if they have different pronouns or a name they would like you to use. And also ask where you should or shouldn't use the name, their name and pronouns to avoid accidentally outing them to someone at work. And continue to treat them with respect and dignity. It's really that easy, okay? And you may be excited and you may be supportive and you just want to tell other people how wonderful it is, but it's not your job to do that, right? So we let individuals identify themselves. Avoid harassment. This is the biggest fear. And we've got here GENDA, the Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act. That placed under the New York State human rights law, that gave transgender, gender non-conforming individuals human rights protections up until January 24th of 2019. Transgender TGNC&B individuals were not protected by the New York State human rights law. They are now, but think about that, only for the past 2 years. So intentional or unintentional outing of someone may be considered sexual harassment. Important things to be aware of. I talked about gender. It's the protection from discrimination against gender identity and expression. Now, it's great to think, well, look, everybody's protected under the Human Rights Act, so we're good. We've got that law in place. That law in and of itself does not prevent hate and violence. So this is why we're talking about education as violence prevention, right? We have laws, but that does not mean that hate and discrimination doesn't still exist. We have, I mentioned already, the Gender Identity Toolkit in our SLIMS trainings, and also the Division of Human Rights, New York State Division of Human Rights also provides guidance on gender, and you can find that on their website. So how do you know someone is trans, right? Well, we only know someone is transgender if they tell us. You can maybe think, you can think that you have some special, radar that can tell you whether someone is transgender, but the truth is you don't know until someone tells you. Assume that you're around others who may identify as TGNC and B at all times, or that you are around a family member, friend, or ally of someone who is TGNCNB. And we'll have some statements after our speakers, and I have a statement that was written by a family friend about a young girl. So it's important to remember that when you're speaking aloud and when you're saying things, you never know who it is that you're impacting. And hopefully you're speaking kindly and respectfully. That's really, just be kind and be respectful. It wins at all times. And lead with respect for others, even if you don't understand their experiences. And this really is across the board, right? It's not unique to the trans community. Lead with respect for others, even if you don't understand their experiences. And TGNCNB folks want and have the right to the same safe and affirming work environment as all others, and have the right to the same safe and affirming environment everywhere. And that's what we're striving for. Again, we never know who is TGNCNB, and we just treat everyone with the same kindness and respect. So I did want to talk quickly about two things, and then we'll introduce our presenters. Two things. Being misgendered, it doesn't happen just to trans people. So before I transitioned, before I announced to the world that I was Owen, I lived almost 47 years as a female, right? As a woman. And I got misgendered more in those 47 years, and I have never been misgendered as Owen. So when I lived as a woman, people constantly were trying to explain to others that that's not a guy, it's a woman. And so there were just so many times when people thought I was male, and then other people spent all this time explaining I was female. But we talk about safety. So I was at the movies one night with my mom and my wife, and we were going in. This is before I became Owen, before I presented to the world as Owen. And we all just needed to go to the bathroom, right? So I figure this is safe, right? I'm with two other women. We're all chatting nicely, and everybody, it looks like I belong. The truth is, there was a guy, and he kept hollering, hey, buddy, at the top of his lungs, continuously. The women in the women's room are looking around, people outside, and I knew what was happening. So I went to the door and I looked at this individual and I said, are you talking to me? And he's like, yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing, in the women's room? And I just looked at him and I deadpan and I said, I think I know, and excuse this, but I think I know what genitalia I have. And therefore I think I know what bathroom, because this individual was just concerned about that. And the person never apologized. He just went into the men's room and with a big, guffaw, and that was that. But had I not been with other people, and had it not been a completely open public movie theater place, that could be a really dangerous situation. And at the time, I was trying to align as I was assigned at birth, right? My sex assigned at birth. So it could be dangerous all around. And I've got time for just one quick more. Coming out at work, everybody has their own way of doing it. I came out at work to just about 300 people all on the same day within the matter of 6 hours. That was the scariest thing I ever did. But you know what? I just made it seem really natural. I just introduced myself. I let people know they might have known me by Angie, but I'm Owen now. I work as assistant chaplain. Stop by and see me, and just continued on. And that gave people time to process. And if I worked hard to educate people so they knew what the terms were and all of those things. Not everyone is as fortunate as that, and I really was fortunate. But again, on my own time, on my own terms. So now I'd like to switch over. We're going to hear from three wonderful presenters today. Each is going to give you a short bit of their story. And it's kind of hard to boil your story down to 3 to 5 minutes, but we're all going to give it a shot. And our first presenter is from the Office of Children and Family Services. Her name is Kelly Mosier. She's an Office Assistant 3. Welcome, Kelly. Kelly, I think you're on mute. I want to thank Kelly for agreeing to do this. This is the first time Kelly's really participating on Zoom. So Kelly, down in the lower.
Thank you. I just
there
received
you go.
assistance.
There you go.
Just trying to find how to unmute, but I believe Nate just helped me out with that. Thank you, Nate. So I'll pick up kind of where Owen had just left off. It's a nice segue. It wasn't planned, but as far as coming out at work, I had done that over a succession of days, July to August of 2019. And I had looked up ways to do it, and what I ended up realizing is there's no one way to do it. It's individual as the person. I did learn that I shouldn't ask people if they could speak privately and then go into their office and close the door behind me. That had kind of an unsettling effect on several people. But it was an overwhelming response. I let people know that I had struggled with this all of my life, that I was aware I was transgender from my first memories, and the environment that I grew up in, not so much home life, but just society at large. There wasn't really education out there. What I did learn, I felt that I was somehow wrong as a person. And I grew up that way. And as times changed, I began absorbing information that was becoming available. And I learned that who I was as a person, as a human, there was nothing wrong with that. And it took me a while to actually absorb everything. And I did reach a point in my life where I realized I could not go on living the life that I had, that it wasn't really my life. I wasn't being my true self. And I couldn't go on like that. And I did seek guidance, medical assistance, medical knowledge, and I began the process. And I also came out to my mom, and she was a little upset with me that I hadn't shared anything in the 47 years prior. But she had assured me if I had, she would have been right there to support me. And I was under the impression I was protecting her. I didn't want her to think there was something wrong with her raising me along with 3 others by herself from my age of 4. But the response that I had in the workplace, I mean, it was overwhelming. People were very happy for me. They were thankful that this news I had to share wasn't something bad. They were also very supportive in letting me know that they appreciated my talking with them, that it was wonderful news for them to know that I was finally beginning to live my life, to be who I am. And I did have one remark. It was a former employee who she spoke with me privately, and it was I didn't take it as a negative. She had asked me if I was going to begin dressing as a woman, and she made the remark that I was going to look like a man in a dress. And it didn't really take me much thinking. I just responded to her saying, no, I'm going to look like myself in a dress. There's not much more to it than that. And as far as my name goes, I've recently changed that. And it's very surprising. That is it seems to be more of a shock to people than anything else. And with those who have known me for a long time, I know it's very difficult. I've never sensed any of them calling me by my old name disrespectfully. It's just a matter of having known somebody for years. I had somebody leave me a voicemail the other day using my old name. And I called them back and I reached their voicemail and I almost replied with my old name, and I caught myself. But hey, it's part of being human. It's a learning process. We never stop learning. For me, it's also very alarming. I've seen through living all the changes that we've made as a society with the education that's out there, what people are learning, how we're not abnormalities, we're humans. And as far as laws being passed to protect us, yes, they're there. It's sad that we need them. It's sad that any minority needs laws passed to protect them. And what I'm also aware of is the changes in some areas of our country where they're trying to undo this education. They're trying to further discrimination. I'm very lucky to be alive to be here, but I'm also very lucky to be in New York State. I believe we're the leaders as far as protections for transgender people go. We're kind of lighting the way. It's ironic to me that I'm living this. I mean, it's not like living the dream. It's always having my guard up wherever I am, being aware of my surroundings, not being paranoid, but just being free. And, you know, for all that's going on in this world, for us to have to be here today to recognize what's going on, a solemn day, and to recognize there's hatred and prejudices against people, which are somehow being accelerated. That needs to come to an end. And we're seeking allies to help us to just be there with us whenever something may arise, even if we're not present. If you hear somebody talking negatively, as Owen had described with his barbershop, you know, there are allies. Somebody spoke up there, and sometimes that's all that's needed. We're here. We're human. We're not going anywhere. We've always been here. And I don't want to go over the time limit. I'm not paying attention to the time. I feel like I could talk all day, and yeah, that's not going to happen. But in any case, I'm aware of other people, and when you're coming out, it's difficult for some of them to try and accept who you are. It's not a matter of prejudice or bias. It's just, to them, it seems all of a sudden you're a different person, but at the same time, you've been that person inside all of your life. And whatever point you became aware of it, that's when you begin to accept yourself. It's exhilarating, daunting, sometimes terrifying, but it's also freeing. And we, just as others, sometimes need the space and time to absorb what's going on. And we are who we say we are. Legally, I'm female. I already have that change done as far as all legal documents go. I had the medical documentation, and I just went ahead and had that done. And to me, that was also another coming out moment, to have that officially recognized.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly, so much for your story. And I agree, we all could share so much. It's hard to narrow our stories down, but thank you so much for sharing a part of you with all of us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you. And next, we're going to hear from Jenna Frazier. Jenna is the newest, I don't know that they are the newest member of New York State employment, but pretty close. Jenna is Jenna Frazier.
Just real quiet.
They are the Edie Windsor, Marsha P. Johnson, and Sylvia Rivera Empire Fellow. It's quite the title. Working in the governor's office. Welcome, Jenna.
That's right. Thank you so much, Owen. And really, first off, I just want to say thank you to all of the folks who are here today, present, here ready to learn. And of course, to you, Owen, and Nathaniel, and all the folks who helped put this really important event together and sponsored it and took time to plan it out, because it is such an important moment of remembrance. It's important to stop and really contemplate and reflect and honor all of the folks who have come before us on Transgender Day of Remembrance. But yes, just jumping in, like Owen said, my name is Jenna Frazier. My pronouns are they and she, and I am a very proud and out Black gender fluid human. So, I guess even just starting off with my title, I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I wanted to uplift two of the folks who are named in my title, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, right? So when I think about, I love history, and I think about Transgender Day of Remembrance. I think about Sylvia and Marsha, who, were two kind of mothers of the movement, if you will. who fought so incredibly hard with their lives for transgender rights, and to make space for us, for all of us, whether you are, a transgender man, transgender woman, gender fluid or gender nonconforming, or terms and words that we don't even have yet for gender, right? It's so expansive. But I think of all of the work that they did and their legacy. And so I just wanted to uplift them again as well on this day, so that we can kind of pause and reflect and really honor their work, because I know that's had an impact on my life and where I am today. But kind of thinking about this theme of education and our personal experiences, one that came to mind to me when I was thinking about, what I would talk about today is that, so I'm a yoga teacher. And before my appointment here in the governor's office, I was teaching yoga in an after-school program in Harlem in the South Bronx for several years. And one day, just to share a story, I remember I went into my yoga class. It was my group of second graders. So, we have like 7, 8-year-olds. And inevitably, this is one of our earlier classes, inevitably, and I always get this question. Well, it was a young girl in the class, and she turned to me and she looked and she said, "Coach Jenna, are you a girl or a boy?" So she looking at me unsure. And so I explained to her, I was like, well, I said I'm gender fluid. So, sometimes I feel a bit more masculine, or maybe I dress like a boy. So maybe that's why you might think I'm a boy. And sometimes I feel a bit more feminine. I like to wear dresses or makeup. And another student who was kind of listening in turned over and said, "So does that mean you're non-binary?" And I kind of laughed and I was like, "Oh, well, it's kind of similar, but yeah, definitely kind of related." And part of why I brought that story in is that, I was sitting there with a group of second graders, right? And there's this second grader who already knows the term non-binary or has some kind of idea of non-binary, right? And so I think about, again, this idea of education, and when you talk to folks about gender and gender expansiveness, I think something that's so important to always reflect on is that we're never too old or too young to really start talking about or learning about gender in all of its forms, right? I think sometimes folks can get a little nervous, right? And they think, oh, well, maybe, like people are too young to understand these concepts. But yet here I was in a second grade classroom in, the South Bronx, and folks already understand ideas about non-binary, right? Or that there are more than just, more genders than just male or female. And so I think about just the power, right, of what education can do for all of us, and the power of stories, right? I think something that I've really appreciated today in this past, half hour is, listening to Owen, you share your stories, and Kelly, you sharing as well, is that, we all have these experiences. Even if it's not an experience of being misgendered, we have experiences of feeling maybe left out or othered or different in some way. And I think really tapping into that feeling can help us connect, really connect the dots and grow and be open and willing to learn something new. Even me, myself, right? I'm always learning something new. Even with gender, right? I feel like that's something I really love about our sort of next generation, if you will, too, is that you have folks that are using neo-pronouns, right? So even pronouns outside of he or she or they, maybe Z or Zim, or there are other terms or other names that are starting to form and grow to help capture people's gender identity better. And it's something that will continue to evolve. And I'm so excited. I think for me, that brings me a lot of excitement and joy. And I'm so excited about where we are moving together as a society as we grow and learn about each other. and all of the wonderful resources that we have available to us from the governor's office and elsewhere that can really help with that. I'm actually, before I wrap up, I'm calling in right now. So apologies too, I'm on my phone, but I'm calling in from the LGBTQ Center here in Manhattan. Where just this morning, actually not even 2 hours ago, the governor was here signing 2 bills to help expand equity and protections for transgender and gender nonconforming folks. So right here in this space, we have the governor, we have Dominique Jackson, we had so many advocates from credible organizations across New York really doing great work to push equity forward. Tons of elected official council people showed up to speak and watch this signing as well. And I think that right there also really captures part of the beauty of being a New Yorker at this time as well, is that and I think Kelly touched on this and other folks that New York is sort of unlike any other state in that we really are moving the needle forward and are really showing what it means to have a commitment to transgender folks and expanding equity. So I'm so proud and honored to be here as a gender fluid person. I'm excited and looking forward to what these bills will bring and to just what the future holds, and really humbled by all of the work of the incredible folks. Some of you probably here on this call today. And advocates who are continue to really do this work to educate and make this in society more inclusive and welcoming for all folks. So again, just I don't want to go too over time, but thank you for making space for this today. And let's keep doing the good work together and educating ourselves and each other.
Great. Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate your thoughts. We all appreciate your thoughts. And again, welcome. Excited to be working with you and all that we can do to continue to grow. Our next speaker is Ron Zaki. Ron is Director of External Relations in with the Division of Human Rights. Welcome, Ron.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for making space for me, Kelly, and Jenna to talk about our identity. And thank you, Owen, for emceeing the event and sharing of yourself, and OGS for supporting this event. Also, thank you, Nate and Commissioner Poole and everyone at OCFS for this great event. My identity started as my mother and father's child. I then realized I was a sibling, eventually a friend, then a student, then an employee, and so forth and so on. My gender assigned at birth is male, and for many years, even decades, I accepted that label. However, since I was given the opportunity to work in the spaces with the LGBTQ+ community, I met many people and was fortunate enough to meet a 14-year-old individual who was explaining to me that they respect the LGBTQ+ community, but they didn't identify with those letters. I asked what that means, part out of curiosity and part out of being older and thinking, do we really need more terms than LGBTQ? We added the plus to cover everything, so shouldn't that have been enough? And this person began to tell me all the terms. I think there were 20+ labels and gave me definitions. And as I was hoping that my face wasn't giving away any judgment I was feeling, it got to one point where this person said pansexual and explained how this is not seeing gender in your attraction. In that moment, I felt seen. I had never seen gender as part of my criteria for who I'm attracted to. Now, gender is different than sexuality, so this might be a weird way to get to my point. But at that point, I realized I was pansexual, and it also gave me space to think about my gender identity. I never really believed in the binary. I shop on whatever side of the store I want to, and always wondered why we even have women's and men's sneakers. Aren't they all just sneakers? I use any available bathroom and always have before this shift in how I identified. And I danced to the beat of my own drum and never listened to gender roles in that regard. However, I worried about identifying as anything other than male because I worried that I was taking room in a space that wasn't fair to occupy because of my privilege. I say privilege because most people see me and identify me as a cisgender white male, and I don't face much daily adversity. From these thoughts, I'm so thankful for another conversation with several young adults in Plattsburgh, because while sharing my truth that I just shared with you, one of them looked at me and said, "You don't think you are gender expansive enough or non-binary enough." And I thought, yes, that is how I feel. And they said, "Don't we all always walk around thinking we aren't enough?" They said, "I have those feelings in so many identities, but you are enough. I am enough. We all are enough." From there, I came out as a non-binary pansexual New Yorker. And thank you for giving me some space. I'm so excited to have been with Jenna at that same event they mentioned and to use my privilege to work on important issues that the TGNCNB community faces, especially for those without as much privilege, and especially those that these issues are life or death situations. So thank you so much for making space and for this important program. And I hope that what we've shared here and me sharing my truth has helped someone.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. And give us so much to think about. And I think we all do struggle with that. Are we enough? And hopefully we all learn to realize over time that we are certainly all enough. Now, I just want to point out that we may run a few minutes over. We got a little bit of a late start. I'd like to read quickly a few statements from individuals who either couldn't be here or didn't feel safe being out at work. So I do want to, and then also one I promised you about someone who has a friend who has a trans daughter. So the first person writes, "When I was first outed as a lesbian, my family didn't take it too well. They discussed sending me to a different high school, so I wasn't around the girl I was attracted to. My parents went to a Christian counselor to discuss how to handle me. It was a really difficult time for me. When I was in graduate school, I came out as trans. That didn't go down too well either. My sister said it was like I was slapping God in the face because I was changing my body that God gave me. My brother said him and his wife considered not letting me see my nieces because they don't want them to think this is okay. Life was difficult, but over time, I got sober. I graduated grad school and got a job making a difference for my community. I continued to be myself no matter what my family thought. I showed up for the holidays when I could afford to visit and stayed true to who I was. Over time, my family showed they loved me despite our difficult past. When my uncle made a public post stating my girlfriend at the time, who was a trans woman, wasn't allowed at Thanksgiving for everyone's comfort, my family stuck by me and said then they wouldn't be there either. And when I got married to her, my parents hosted our wedding. Sometimes things really do get better. Don't compromise who you are. I'm able to love and be loved by my family, and I didn't have to change myself. My dad once told me, "You were a happy kid, and then it seemed like you lost yourself for a while, but now you're happy again." Being myself, I was able to educate my family and show them that trans people can be happy and successful, and I brought them along for my journey. Another person writes, "A friend of mine has a transgender daughter a friend of mine has a transgender daughter. By the age of 3, she was saying openly that she was a girl and people should stop calling her a boy. By the time she was in 2nd grade, she was indistinguishable from all the other girls, long hair, and she loves dresses and jewelry and really wanted to join the girls' running team to be with her friends. She was also, at age 7, refusing to use the bathroom at school all day out of fear. She was afraid to go into the boys' bathroom because she knew she didn't belong there, but the school wouldn't let her use the girls' bathroom either. My friend was told by the principal that they would need to send a letter to the parents of every other grade school child to let them know that she, a 7-year-old, would be using the girls' bathroom. This obviously did not help the situation. They were able to prevent the letter from going out, but it had an effect on her. She was 8 the first time she talked about feeling suicidal, even describing using her scarf with the ceiling fan in her room. By 3rd grade, regardless of the letter not going out, all the kids knew, and it's what she heard from her classmates all day, making fun of her and asking why she was using the girls' bathroom. Remember, this child has looked like a little girl since I have known her. She got permission to use the nurse's bathroom. So now this little girl has to get permission to walk across the school campus to use the bathroom. A basic need that we all have, and especially a need for little kids. In all of this, she never wanted the attention or the scrutiny of other people. She just wanted to feel safe when she used the bathroom. This follows her every year when she starts school, too. And our last writer, I'm non-binary, even though I'm very femme presenting most of the time. In my last job, the office environment was poor. If we ever had something like Tdor, I was never made aware of it. Several of my immediate coworkers were openly hostile towards the transgender community, so much so that I ended up at HR in tears several times. But I was too afraid to push legal action for fear of making my situation even worse than it already was. And that was without anyone knowing I was non-binary. Or if they did, I doubt they understood what it meant. In a nutshell, I was thoroughly miserable in that job and was regularly having mental breakdowns and panic attacks. A friend already with another agency mentioned an opening, and I applied and got it. Since being here at my new agency, I found people to be much more accepting and kinder. The environment is so much better, and I'm much happier now. I know my experience is mild compared to what I'm sure others have been through, especially transgender and non-binary people of color, but it's truly so wonderful to have access to and see something like this TDOR event go on. So thank you to all our contributors as well. And Transgender Day of Remembrance vigils honor the memory of those people murdered in acts of anti-transgender violence by saying their names out loud. We publicly mourn and honor the lives of our transgender siblings who might otherwise be forgotten. We express love and respect for transgender people in the face of national indifference and hatred. So we are going to read the 46 names, and then we will have a moment of silence. And I want to give credit to the TDOR Trans Life Matter organization for this presentation. Tayana Alexander. Samuel Edmund Damian Valentin. Bianca Banks. Dominique Jackson. 50 bands. Alexis Braxton. China Carrillo. Jasmine Bright. Jeffrey Bright. Jenna Franks. Diamond Carey Sanders. Chris Brandon Ruiz. Jada Peterson. Dominique Lucius. Remy Fennel. Tiara Banks. Iris Santos. Natalia Smoot Lopez. Tiffany Thomas. Carrie Washington. Jahera Dialto Balenciaga. T. Harden. Whispering Wind Bear Spirit. Danny Henson. Sophie Vasquez. Serenity Hollis. Oliver Taylor. Poe Black Oliver Jackson. K.C. Wilson. Tierra Marie Lewis. Nova Rue Watson. Taya Ashton. Shay Vanderpump. Coco Chanel Wortham. Pooh Johnson. Zoella Rose Martinez. Dizia Monet Smith. Brianna Ulmer. Kier Laprie Cartier. Royal Poetical Stars. Mel Robert Groves. Kiva Scatter. Jesse Hart. Joe Acker. Ricky Autumuro. Markeisha Lawrence. Please join me for a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. It's a solemn moment when we read all of the names. It's a somber moment. We honor those who are no longer with us, who died for living because they lived authentically, taken short in their lives. And if you notice the names, most were extremely young. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today and taking the few extra minutes. I want to thank Office of Children and Family Services and the Department of Civil Service for sponsoring this event. Thank you to the commitment from both those agencies. And I want to remind you of this, the hope in all of this, that as many have said, New York State, under the leadership of Governor Hochul, continues to be committed to securing TGNCNB rights and providing gender identity education to ensure a safe environment, not only in the workplace, but throughout all of New York. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.